it's Polly and Kim
Hi.
and Polly, and we're going to do another conversation. We've had a bit of a lull, but we had a thought, well, Polly's had a thought, and we're going to do it on strength and the word strong in relation to when we're going through big life events, being ill ourselves, people dying, or the challenges of grief, or, big life changes. That in that context of when we use that word. And Polly, she rang me up. She said, "I've got a new word, Kim, that I want to talk about." So I'm going to hand over to Polly because I thought she did a really, she really inspired me to want to talk about this word.
Oh, good. Inspirational. That's a quality I can admire. So I had a moment. I do a chanting group, and we do Vedic chanting, and a lot of it is about exploring kind of a different way of looking at how humans are and our qualities and our life challenges, and it's a different approach. And after one of these sessions, I just felt really inspired to, actually slightly angry as well. I think there was a bit of frustration to talk about and think about. I did a bit of writing about what happens, what it means, the implications of somebody saying, "Oh, aren't you strong? You're so strong. I can see you're coping really well. You're being really strong in this situation." And personally, I don't find it at all helpful to be called strong by somebody in those situations. I would find it helpful if somebody said, "How are you managing? You seem to be coping really well.
Mm-hmm.
What's really going on?" But just to be labelled strong, I find it gives people a chance to go, "Well, she's all right. Off I go. I don't have to worry about Polly, Kim, my neighbour who's just been bereaved. They seem to be coping. They are strong." And it's a really challenging place to be put with that, because then how do you subsequently manage your behaviour after you've been perceived as strong? If you do anything that doesn't fit into that viewpoint, then are you weak? Have you failed? Where are you left with that? And it's about public perception of you and how that affects you quite deeply.
Yes, and I think before we started, we were chatting, and you said that the public language, isn't it? So that, and often it is, "Oh, you're so strong," and actually, there's not usually a qualifier in my experience behind that. It's one of these, let's pop the label on or the naming on, and you say people can then wander off or go off, and you're. I think I often get this as well. I'm left unseen. What do I do with all those other complicated, floundering, difficult emotions? There's no avenue to have a discussion. I mean, I can, I can remember when going through all the stuff with my husband's illness, people do go, "Oh, you're so strong, Kim," and actually, I'd be a bit like, that kind of,
it's a reaction.
It's a reaction. It's a very sort of, there is a reaction. There's not a reflection. And I go, actually, no, what I do know, and I did have the words, I said, what I do know is that I am strong and I am vulnerable.
Yes.
All of those things.
Yes.
So,
I think that idea that you can be this mixture, I think the public speak that we were talking about likes to put a nice label on. It's a black-white label, really. There's no, you're either that thing or you're this thing. And you can't have nuances. You can't have moments when you're in a state of collapse and feeling in yourself that you're absolutely not dealing with anything well. There's no space for that, because you've been labelled as, or you're labelled. I mean, we haven't talked about the weakness and labelling somebody as a weak person who isn't coping, having strategies, behaving in a way that's acceptable. Somebody who turns to alcohol because they're bereaved is described as weak. And yet I would think that was perfectly understandable, natural kind of aspect of the things you might do in that situation.
So it's about the nuances, isn't it, that we're trying to tease out, to allow the nuances. And okay, we're not expecting, are we? We're not expecting like the passing comment in the shop when someone says that. That we're not having a deep and meaningful engagement, but it's the other, whether it's closer friends or family or the professionals involved. And I think it's when there's, are we being able to be seen? as these complex human beings, or to be put in a box. And then my sense always is that if that's when that's going on, when there's these labels coming out, is that the person. So if we're talking about the practitioner, then they're not really seeing me or you.
No.
They're just enacting some protocol from some book over there. We've got lots of books that tell us how to deal with people, or some guidance. And I think that is a failing for humanity. Sounds a bit grandiose, doesn't it?
No, but I think it is a huge failing, and I think to some extent we all do it in some way. We don't know we do it. We make these little judgments, don't we, all the time about people and how they're behaving. But it's the fact that when you were talking about when it comes to professionals, that if you have somebody or somebody fairly close to you who'd expect more of, that they want to label you, put you in that box in order that they can step away and not have to discover more about you. They don't need to ask more questions because that's how you are. And then they can start behaving in their whatever they want to deal with in a very comfortable place because they know where they've put you. And it's not helpful when you need guidance, support. You need to be able to trust a person that they're doing the best thing for you. How can you trust a person, especially a medic, who doesn't actually have an interest, actually, not even just see, just isn't actually interested in seeing how you're dealing with the things that are being thrown at you. And I think that's a fascinating area, that how everybody deals with it. And now nothing stays the same. The fluctuations, and the nuances, the fluctuations, and the fact that we need to be supported through the good days when we're feeling bold, and that we can manage, and that maybe something's grown in us, and the days when we feel that life is hopeless, we are helpless in it. And people need to see those things in each other.
So an example, I was thinking example of where, I was strong, and it was a reflective process, or acting appropriately. So just to give you the story, my husband was due to have a second operation that got cancelled, and the children were, we did talk to the children about that, and informed them, at their level. And then some weeks passed, and then the chemotherapy was going to start. So on the morning of the first chemo session, I'd taken the kids down to school. I was just dropping them off, and not yet again, but I was reminding them that on that day, mum and dad were going down to hospital for some, they was going to have some treatment, and the family friend was going to pick them up. And my youngest child, she absolutely exploded in the back of the car going, "I don't know what you're talking about. Dad was going to have an operation. Why is he not having the operation?" And, it was like this stream of rage, really. And I just had that, moment of going, right, I think it's that being able to draw breath, see what's happening, because her brother was starting to go, "Of course you know what's going on,
Mum's told you."
And right, she didn't hear it. It was obviously she didn't hear it. It was too much at the time when we first explained it to her, and she's blocked it out. And I think, as you've said to me previously, I could have done a whole myriad of reactions. I could have got upset with her, I could have got angry with her, I could have done all these things. But maybe it's part of the work I do, whatever. You just go, right, okay, what is needed here? And so in terms of the strength, it's not unless you're not feeling great inside at all at that moment. You go, what is the most appropriate, it's like adults, mature, courageous. What do I need to do? Because it's not about me. It's about
what's going to be helpful here.
What's going to help this child, both these children, to set this moment, it's safe, so she can then step into her day and take the next bit forward. So
you were calm.
Yeah.
You were very clear.
Yeah.
You heard her, so she knew you'd
Mm.
heard her.
Yeah.
You weren't denying that, or saying, you silly girl. You,
Even if it means stupid or whatever.
yeah,
No. Oh no.
no.
So it's not. Is it the place of? So when people say, "Oh, you're so strong," I didn't panic.
True, you didn't panic, and you were able to draw on lots of qualities, some of which we
Mm.
haven't talked about yet, that you had in you, that ability to be calm under
Mm.
siege,
Mm.
to take a breath. That's really important. Actually, I
Mm.
hate to say this, but actually to get your breathing under
Mm.
control, to take a moment to
Mm.
consider without reacting, and
Mm.
doing the best thing in your very grown-up shoes
Mm.
at that time.
Yeah, because it's not a matter of going, oh, I know there's some pamphlet somewhere that has told me how to deal with this or whatever. It's,
No,
it's about being open within oneself.
this is what's needed
Yeah,
here.
and
Yeah.
just find the best way in that
Mm,
moment,
mm,
and then it's done.
yeah.
It's done.
And yet, actually, you can go off and then have a howl in a car park,
Mm.
having gone through that,
Mm.
and feel all the things that you were feeling for her and
Mm.
all your situation. But the time, and anybody seeing that from the outside would have thought, God, she's really coping admirably with all of this, and seeing your
Mm.
seeing a snapshot, isn't it? It's just a
Mm.
snapshot of
Mm.
how one is.
Mm.
And I think we are judged on the snapshots too often. But I think it's a lovely example of how parenting and being grown up when needed. I mean,
Yeah,
taking,
being present to the,
yeah,
without sounding too flaky, is it? But that's the real present. And
yeah,
I learned so much from that moment
mm,
because it was such a surprise. Because in
yeah.
my adult head, I thought, well, we've explained,
She's
she's
got
got
it.
it. We've
Mm,
explained to them weeks ago, and you just go, oh, we all have different
yeah,
perceptions of the moment and different capacities. Whether it's according to age or just that life circumstance, and
mm,
that really, yeah, was a profound lesson.
mm, yeah. It's. I think there's a number of times that we have to draw on certain qualities in us, and we were talking a bit about, when a difficult situation comes up, there's a need to be strong, to be
Mm.
um, mature, to be very stable and steady, and make clear, helpful decisions. And you can't do it all the time, but having that ability to call on those things. I was remembering, because it last month, particularly with the blossom, one of the times I was being driven up to King's to start another month, probably at least a month, of chemo and other treatments, and knowing that I would be made to feel so ill I didn't want to live, might not survive it. I mean, there are lots of options there on
Mm.
things to be really, really scared about, away from home, away from children, away from family and friends. And there were times that we stopped at traffic lights somewhere near some blossom trees, and how I did not get out of the car.
Mm.
And I was very aware that I was needing to be strong for myself, having decided that I was going to do this thing, that I had to call on
Mm.
lots of steadying breaths, lots of reminders to myself that this is what I said I would do and this is what I was going to do, and to not let my underlying terror of all the
Mm.
things take me out of that. And I have the same thing with, I mean, I'm actually scared of the dentist. And I have huge amounts of dental
Mm.
work over the years, and I've told them I'm really scared, and they but you seem so calm, and you never twitch, or you never. I said, do you realise? I said the girding of my
The girding,
loins
the girding.
to get here, breathe, and to not bite my partner's head off in the car on the way because I'm really, and then I have to practice my breathing and my taking myself into another place the whole time, because I know I can do it if I'm prepared and I need to do it. And I trust that I can, actually.
So it's touching, isn't it, on that sense of feeling. I mean, you said the opposite of strength is weakness, but it's also about perceiving being out of control. And as we're talking,
Mm,
I'm just realizing a lot of our culture, so geared at the moment to the notion of the victim and being undone, and that's
mm,
gets a lot of high status attention at the moment. And actually, I mean, if you understand psychological studies and read far and wide, it's often people, that are some really interesting court cases where the victims didn't act in a highly emotional way,
Right.
and so they were perceived to be lying. And this
Yeah.
is quite common with,
Mm.
with this lack of comprehension, understanding of, the capacity for humans who are very, probably how we're, as you're saying, we're seen kind of steady and in control, but we've girded our loins,
Yeah.
and we're not going to have a huge display of emotion because that's not our way of being. It is other people do that, but not everyone
It's
does
not.
it.
It's finding
Mm,
the appropriate moment for that. I mean, they're totally appropriate moments for really letting go, being very affected, and crying or just appearing to have lost the plot. We have lovely expressions for all these things, don't we? Out of control,
yeah,
lost the plot.
yeah.
Because there's times when that is appropriate, but a lot of the time those things are not useful behaviours. I think that whole
Mm,
thing about, if we're, as human beings, I think most of us as we get mature want to do the best thing in most circumstances. And it's not the just best thing for me, it's the best thing for my community,
mm,
however tiny that might be. That might be
mm,
one neighbour or one child, or
mm.
it's doing the best thing in that situation and pulling on all those things that we've learnt to support us to do that. And then afterwards, you go away and you do have a howl,
Mm,
or you
mm.
spend 2 days eating chocolate, or uh, the
Yes,
thing
yeah,
that you do when you know you need to let go of
and
those
yes,
that need to be strong, publicly strong.
yeah. You see, that's right. And I wonder if kind of the Hollywood culture or whatever it is, has turned the high octane emotion, anxiety, into the entertainment,
Yeah.
and forgotten. There's this huge capacity for us to act in a far more, I was going to say, noble way,
Mm,
and sovereign way, have sovereignty and insight and capacity to actually, in whatever life circumstances we're dealing with, to still be of, yeah, like you say, service to ourselves and to those around us.
yeah.
And I would like to see, that would be one of my wishes, to just see more of that coming, flowing through again
Mm.
in our culture.
We don't want to make it be something. I think we were talking earlier as well about, um, both of us have been called strong many, many, many times, as the old saying goes,
Mm,
and that's not always helpful to people. If
no.
you don't feel in yourself that you can be strong, for whatever reason, then it seems like an unattainable goal, isn't it? Oh, she's strong and I'm not, and then let's finish. Like the qualities that you can pull upon to be strong when needed.
Mm,
I think people don't realise how strong they often are,
yeah.
because they haven't examined it, I suppose. They haven't really kind of sat with it. But in order to cope, to deal with life, to be there for it, whatever it throws at you,
Yes, I think this is one of my kind of
facing it.
basic, one of my, I was going to say passionate, it's not the right word. Words are so tricky, aren't they? One of the things I feel keenly is like, yeah, when you're so strong, Kim, you're so strong, Polly. Say it's a slap down label, but really for me, this lid we're lifting off, it means to me more, we acknowledge our capacity to look at, a situation, an event, an experience, and go, right, well, in there's all sorts of things,
Mm.
comfortable things, joyous things, things that I don't understand, and then to know that we've got to just use our life skills to navigate our way.
Navigation is a good word
And
for this,
and
isn't it?
when people go, oh, you're so, strong, it's, as we said, then people don't have to engage with it anymore. But it's also this notion that sometimes it feels a bit like an accusation.
No, it does.
Uh,
I'm very much, and we both of us flinched actually. Kim, you're so strong. I mean, she did it to me earlier, and my body language was like, oh, it just feels like something flung at you as a label accusation, and it
yeah.
puts you in another. You're other. You're not me.
Mm,
I think it's a real
mm,
separating thing, isn't it? And I'd like that feeling for people to realise that everyone, all of us, to realise that within our whole range of everything that we are, that we have strengths and how we have wonderful qualities that we can call upon in ourselves. It's a case of that, training them, practicing. Everybody makes judgments. The moment when you pick up the wallet and give it to the person who's dropped it in front of you in the queue, you don't put it in your pocket. But actually, that's a really strong thing to do. You've made it. You didn't realise you've made a judgment. You've done the right thing. Automatically. Well, they're tiny things to be quite proud of and go, I could make the right judgment there. I didn't have to go and think, oh,
should I,
shouldn't I? I just did the right thing. And we all do it all the time. But the label bit, I mean, we always come back to the public to it. The labels don't help any of us. And we would like all of us to feel less labelled, boxed,
and to have the courage actually to sometimes to question these things. Because one of my other thoughts is when we say, you're so strong, and we flinch. I sometimes make an assumption, it's my assumption, but I go, I'm just trying to understand what this is about. I go, is it because the character who's voicing that is seeing someone who is, because it is like an annexation, it has the capacity to stand their ground and be responsible for their actions. So, because I know we said, the opposite to, you're so strong isn't that you're weak, but it's also then it bound up in there. I'm just thinking this through, is that that kind of character has a tendency to want to be told what to do, to be led. And so if you're being led or you're being told what to do, you're not engaging with your own sovereignty.
No, so your sovereignty is absolutely. You've handed it over. It's that whole thing about you've actually it's been subsumed by another power, hasn't it? We do occasionally talk about our own power and sovereignty and our personal power very intertwined. And I think you just literally handed it over to some other agency.
And then you don't. And if things go wrong, you can blame someone else. But actually, if I make a mistake, I've made a mistake.
Yeah,
and that's quite grown up.
And I don't know if most of you would have come across that moment where you suddenly realise, I really need to pick up the pieces from the mistake I've made. I need to do some proper apologies. I need to make amends to somebody, or somehow make these things better. And the moment when you don't run away from it, I mean, as youngsters we do. I didn't do that. What a name, we hide things we've stolen. We cover up things we've damaged. I mean, that whole that is childish behaviour to do that. The moment when you suddenly realise that, yeah, actually that was me. I did that. I hold my hand up for that. That's a really empowering moment, actually, because you suddenly go, well, yeah, I did that, and did the world end? No. Do these people think less of me? Actually,
no.
They probably think more of you.
Yeah. Because it's honesty.
It's that honesty about, and so there's little strengths in us, but they're built on as we mature and grow up. And I think Kim and I are both having troubles with current societal norms, which are about we're all babies and toddlers looked after by a nanny of some description. It's a nanny in a uniform that isn't very pleasant, and it's also very subtle control. But we don't have people don't have a chance to grow up and develop those. I need to do this today, now, this minute. Later on, I can let it all go and, watch these enders or whatever it is I need to do to relax. Strength and trust in our capacities to do stuff that matters.
And it's, it's the nuances, isn't it? And it's not all one thing or the other. I think I'd like to end with you earlier, previous, off camera, I've been talking about the strength of the oak. So I thought it was such a lovely, image, because of that the nuance and the complexity that's involved in the oak.
I think it was helpful for me because, again, we were having a conversation about how we might appear as very strong and we are also very vulnerable and maybe don't show our vulnerability. But when I was doing my little bit of writing, when I first started thinking about this area, I came up, I need an image, and the image I came up with, I've always admired and felt very connected with the English oak. I mean, it's an amazing tree, but the oak has huge numbers of qualities. I mean, it provides timber, shade, food, delight, stability to the soil, nourishment to animals, you name it. It provides a huge amount, but at the same time it suffers. It can get blasted, it gets diseases, it can get, well, we cut it down, but it can get damaged by thunderstorms. It can actually not, it can fail to thrive because of other things. But it's, what it does is it still has those good things, those abilities to offer at the same time as being under attack and being vulnerable. And most of the time, some oaks, the quality of oakness will continue. And even if knocked over, oaks resprout. They send out acorns, which then grow into other oaks. It's a really a lovely quality of the warmth and what it offers to us, to realise we have those things in ourselves. At the same time, we're under attack almost constantly, particularly now. And we still, as an oak does, we stand in the field and we weather it.
So, thank you. I love that, and it just popped into my head. It's often said, you come from a line of strong women. I know you come from a line of strong women and strong men who've survived to be here.
To make you.
To make you, and for you to then carry that forward. So thank you for listening once more, and keep tuning in, liking, subscribing, and joining our little delve into words.
Any comments, very happily received.
So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.